3 years ago, I started challenging the alphabet as we all know it. And this later led to merging the alphabet with the Chinese written system. I did this out of fascination for the written system, but also out of frustration. So how do we read? And is it possible to make a better alphabet than the one we have today? And what is the difference and similarities between Chinese characters and the alphabet? And will it ever be possible to merge those two together to one common written language? What I'm going to show you today is a series of experiments. And I'm also going to test it on you, so be ready. And I'm not going to show you any answers, because I don't know the answers to all of these questions yet, but in order to try and find them, I've been looking into these experiments. As a child, I was very bad at reading and writing as well, and the worst thing that could ever happen to me was to be asked to read out loud in front of a class. And even though I hated reading and writing, I really liked writing, but I wasn't good at it. So I wrote the words as I thought they sounded, and thereby the way I thought they should be written anyway. And so this whole alphabet, which seemed like this authority put upon me, which was imperfect, really frustrated me. I was giving these bricks, these possibilities of creating stories that I couldn't use the way I found fit. So I started dreaming about being able to pick up a book and just see the stories play out in front of me instead of having to read these abstract shapes that put together made an approximate sound that then revealed this meaning of the word. So what I did when I started out this project was to look at these kind of letter combinations that, when put together, sounds more like one character than two characters. And by making more characters, I wanted to make a bigger diversity in the word pictures that we have today, therefore making the different words look less alike. And these are the characters I came up with. Let them sink in for a moment. Instead of working with typeface design, I worked on designing letters. Therefore, I designed it in Helvetica and Times New Roman, since those are the most widely used typefaces today. Here you have it in Times New Roman. And now I'm going to show you some experiments. And if you would all just raise your hand as soon as you have decoded what's on the screen, then I can see if you're able to read it and how fast you will read it, okay? Oh my God. So this is actually very interesting because it tells us a lot about how we read. That we do not look at letters, but we look at the letter combination as a picture made up from these letters. The word picture, if you will. So I still didn't have the answers to how I could maybe be able to see text instead of reading it. So I thought Chinese would probably be the right direction to look in. And since a lot of the Chinese characters are pictograms and ideograms, which basically means that one character represents one object or one idea, one concept. A couple of years back, when working in New York, I stumbled upon these flyers in Chinatown. And even though I was in New York, this kind of safe environment where I was able to speak with people and read signs, all of a sudden there was this piece of information that I had no idea what it was about. I wasn't able to decode it in any way. And maybe because I was in this known environment, this other language seemed so... The whole communication gap really struck me as a big problem, or as much more vivid than normally. And this is a picture from Hong Kong, and from a graphic designer's point of view, this is a total mess. I mean, what characters will you use? What typefaces will you use to put up next to any of these Chinese characters? They are simply so different in the whole, in their dynamics and in their darkness and construction. Why don't we just write Chinese using the alphabet or vice versa? Basically, it all comes down to the written language, the spoken language. Since Chinese has such a low amount of syllables in the spoken language, you won't really. This causes a lot of words to be pronounced the same way. And when you don't have the diversity in the spoken language, you can't write it down phonetically without losing its specific meaning. Therefore, they have so many characters to specify meaning rather than pronunciation. Yeah. Here you see very different characters, same pronunciation, very different meaning. So, in order to start out this project, I looked at the most basic components of the two written systems. They're both made up by only 8 basic strokes, and this is actually very interesting because in the alphabet we use it for all the letters and numbers we use every day, while in Chinese they can use these 8 basic strokes and combine them into more than 50,000 different characters. And when you then combine each set of basic strokes, you get these shapes here, which I think they're very interesting because they look so much like the writing system they represent. So you have, of course, the European, the Latin alphabet, and the Chinese characters. So this is the blueprint of the starting point for each writing system, if you will. So what I did to try and figure out how this actually influenced on the look of the word pictures in, for instance, the alphabet, I took 6 Chinese characters that kind of had some resemblance with the alphabetic characters, and then I redrew them. So the ones you see in the middle here is redrawn from the Chinese characters to fit the size and darkness of the alphabet. And here again are some examples, so be ready with your hands. Okay. So, Chinese characters can be combined into new characters in numerous ways. This is just 2 examples. But what's interesting here is that they do it both horizontally and vertically. In the alphabet, we only do this horizontally when you have the Danish A, Ø, O, and you have different ligatures and the ampersand, if you know that, like the and character. So, in order to understand this and to see what this did to the word, that you have these characters you compress into one new character. I wanted to see if we could kind of compress the words from the alphabet in this way. So, as I spoke about earlier, some of the Chinese characters have this pictographic value, which basically means that a mountain either looks like a mountain or just represents a mountain. I wanted to play around with this because this was really what I found fascinating about the Chinese characters, and wanted to see how I would be able to maybe use this even though I didn't know the alphabet. I mean, the Chinese characters, and I don't know any Chinese either. So I wanted to play around with this, and rather than making text you read from left to right or up to down, I created something looking like this, this is isolation. So it's one composition that represents a situation more than actually a text. So this is a human surrounded by a wall, surrounded by mountains. And this one is distance. You have a man and a woman on each side of a huge forest. So it goes from characters representing trees into characters representing a forest, and then a more dense character for forest as well. So you get this feeling of the forest getting more and more dense. So this is another way of narrating using Chinese characters. This one was very funny. I tried to make a picture of an obstacle. So I had a man and a woman standing on each side of a wall of fire with a dragon in between them. I thought, this is definitely an obstacle. And I showed this to a Chinese guy. I was lucky enough to have my work reviewed by some Chinese people. And he was totally puzzled with this. He's like, no, I don't get it. I was like, okay, so, you have the prince who have to slay the dragon to free the princess, right? No. Dragons can never be bad. Dragons are good. We are all children of dragons. And this, this was a very, very clear reminder of how much cultural heritage I bring into a project like this, and how different we really are from between East and West in our whole view on symbols and so on. Actually, none of the Chinese people I've shown this to have ever seen their characters used in this way. And please prove me wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, I know this is something new, and I think this is one of the qualities of working with something you don't know too well. If you know a lot around it, then you can start going into it, and then you'll find out more on your way. But to work with something where you're not restricted within the rules of a certain system really opens up possibilities to create something new. This is the simplest experiment I did. Simply just removing the first character of each English word and replaced it by the Chinese character for the same, with the same meaning, basically. So this is, I call this one the bilingual landscape. It's a landscape painting, as a graphic designer would do it. Can you read it? Okay, good. So, I think there's a lot of obvious reasons, or a lot of obvious advantages to one common written language. Many of you have a second language, and you're probably able to start reading and writing it right away, more or less. This is not the case if you have to learn Chinese. You have to learn a whole new character set. You have to learn a new written language, and so this would definitely make it easier for us to both exchange knowledge, learn Chinese or Asian languages in general, and in general get a broader cultural understanding of each other, laugh about dragons, and demystify things we don't know about each other. So enough about that. I think that's pretty obvious. To create one common language is definitely a very ambitious goal, though I think it is possible. But if it would ever be possible to implement this is a whole other question. And if we won't just all start speaking English, for instance, or use the ever-growing and developing translation tools we have today. Language is a tool for structuring and sharing thought. And I think the bigger question is really, if we want to live in a world where we all structure our thought in the same way, and nobody asks us if we want to drink the water machine.